Hello, everyone. Welcome to Small Talk. Well, my guest today is a teacher, an advocate, a consultant, as well as a speaker from Toronto, Emily Wright. Welcome to the show, Emily.
Hi, Nancy. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure for sure. I know you do more than that because I was looking where it says see more about Emily, but we'll start off with this. When did you start teaching?
I have been an Ontario certified teacher since 2019, so it was a later career choice for me. I got my master's degree from the University of Toronto in teaching, and I am working for a Toronto School Board as an occasional teacher. So that's like a supply teacher. I specifically work with elementary, so kindergarten to grade 6 is my specialty, and I love every minute of it.
Oh, that's nice to hear, right? It's nothing like doing a job that you enjoy.
Exactly.
Oh, so now you're an advocate, and what do you advocate?
I'm an advocate. In my prior years, I experienced mental health at a very early age, bullying as well, which really brought on my mental health concerns.
Hmm.
And I ended up having an addiction to some drugs, and that led me to experiencing homelessness. So my advocacy is really involved in the homelessness community in Toronto, and harm reduction and mental health, and also specifically talking about bullying and the effects that has on our children,
Yeah.
and those effects that can bullying can really affect us as we grow up, despite it happening in grade 1 or 2, that those effects can carry on throughout life. So those are sort of the things I advocate the most about. And I really use a lot of social justice in my teachings in the classroom as well.
Very good. Yeah, for sure. And no, and now you're also a consultant. What
Yeah,
area?
so I do some curriculum development. I've created a homelessness curriculum document with Raising the Roof,
Mhm.
and that is for all of Canada to use. We've used a curriculum document that's from kindergarten all the way to grade 12, with activities around homelessness and how to bring that into the classroom, and how teachers can use the document to help children break some of the biases apart that we just automatically have when we think about people experiencing homelessness.
Yeah.
And I've also done some consulting for the Canadian AIDS Foundation, again, creating a curriculum document where AIDS is something that is talked about, and activities created for teachers, so that they don't have to focus on creating the curriculum plan. They just have to focus on following the lessons in order to engage the students.
Right. Now, when you talk about the homeless, I know there's like different, there's the people who have mental illness are often homeless, drug addiction, of course, and people who just for whatever reason maybe lost their job or whatever, like they were always maybe one paycheck away from being homeless, then something happens and now they're on the streets, right?
Correct.
It, it, it is a problem, not just in Canada, of course, but it is a problem. And do you think it's being handled properly by the powers that be?
Oh, absolutely not. I live in Toronto, so in a very urban city, and homelessness is something that we see at every crosswalk, at every outside of every store. And the numbers since COVID, unfortunately, there seems to be more and more people experiencing homelessness, and not just those that are the hidden homeless. And when I refer to the hidden homeless, I talk about people who might be couch surfing or
Hmm.
staying on French couches. I'm talking about visual homelessness, the
Right.
people that are out on the streets panhandling, and trying to survive that way. So there's been a huge increase in that. In Toronto, we don't have enough shelter beds for all the people experiencing homelessness. And then, we talk about extreme weather. Like today, there's a weather warning for the heat. And, do we have enough cooling centers for people experiencing homelessness to be able to access that? And the same goes for the winter when we have extreme cold alerts, opening up temporary sort of housing or shelters for those people to be able to get out of the cold and to warm up a little bit.
Right. One of the things I hear a lot of is people who are not homeless saying, oh, well, they choose to be on there, or, they don't want to go into the shelters. Like there's always these, I guess there's a lot of stigma attached to being homeless, really, right?
And yeah, exactly. And I think, Nancy, that's one of the things that as an advocate and someone who's working with young children that I really try to bring in the class. So an example is I read a book on homelessness with my students. And before I did that, I sort of asked them, what does it mean to be homeless?
Mm.
And a lot of them instant response was, it means they're lazy and can't get a job. And that's the views that, us as adults are passing along to our children.
Yeah.
And so really working on sort of pulling that apart a lot so that children can really think about, well, how do you get a job if you don't have an address? How do you get a job if you don't have a printer to print your resume off? How do you get a job if you don't have the clothing to wear to present yourself? And all of these things, combined really plays a role in why that person is still experiencing homelessness.
Right. Now, I do know that there are groups here in Chilliwack and BC, and I can't remember the name of the organization. They'll take, I think it's especially females, where they'll take them maybe to a thrift store and give them clothing, dress them up so that they can go and apply for a job, right?
Yeah, and we have those services in Toronto too. One of them is called Dress to Success, and make donations of clothing, and they're able to come and choose their own outfit, and have various sizes and shoes and ties and dresses and things like that. So if you're lucky to be able to utilize those services, but you still need a place or a roof over your head where you can shower and clean yourself to wear those clothing.
Yeah.
So we do have those organizations, but there's still not enough for the number of people experiencing homelessness. And like you said, Nancy, the number of people living paycheck to paycheck, or even our friends on Ontario Disability Supports, or on social assistance, I guess is something we can say as Canada-wide as a term, who are fighting either paying rent or food, but they can't do both.
They can't do both. I know that, and this is what I heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but in BC, like we have a very high cost of living, and when it comes to welfare, they get one of the lowest amounts. This might be, I think it was like $718. That's for your rent and your food. There's no place.
No, exactly. I mean, the average one-bedroom apartment in Toronto is $2,400 now. And, they only make $1,000 a month on these social assistance programs. So there is a big issue with housing, but also with safe housing. Like, how do we provide them with safe housing when it's not, they're living in rooming houses and renting rooms, and, there's 3 to 4 people a room because that's all they can afford.
For sure. Yeah. Well, let's move on. Because that's a topic that I think both of you, I could go on for a long time talking.
Of course.
But I want to get into some other things because I'm looking at, you're a board member at the Smith Haven Service for Dogs.
Yeah, so I identify as somebody who has a disability. I also have several chronic illnesses, and I use a service dog every day in my life. So as a teacher, my service dog comes with me to work. I use service dogs sort of as a teaching mechanism for my students as well. So an example of that might be, not only do I explain what a service dog is and things like, you don't go up and pet a service dog and you always ask, but I also use the service dog as a teaching tool in my classroom. So, oh no, it's really loud in the classroom. My service dog, Griffin, it's too loud for his ears. What can we do to make him feel more comfortable? And that really helps the children because the dog is smaller than them. And they sort of understand that this thing that breathes and moves needs things as well. And so that's been a really great technique. And on that, I joined, I'm a board member of Smith Haven Service Dogs, which is an organization that trains service dogs for, unfortunately, we don't work with children, so anyone over the age of 18. And that's something that I'm really involved in and I really love to be a part of.
Right. I love when you talk about what you bring into the classroom. I don't know if a lot of teachers do that, but I think it's.
No, I'm the only teacher in Ontario as of right now with a service dog in the classroom. So it makes it, I love to go to a new classroom because I am a supply teacher and educate students and staff members on service dogs, the rules, why I need a service dog. And, kids are really compassionate and understanding. And when you explain something so simple to them that, my dog is here to help me. When I need help, the dog helps me get that help. So maybe it's medication, maybe it's reminding me to eat food because I'm a type 2 diabetic. And the kids understand that and they with that, understand that distracting the dog could be dangerous to me. But, they still also love having a dog in the classroom. And so I still do things like, if we get through the whole day and nobody touches the service dog and everybody gets their work done, then we can pet the dog at the end of the day. And so I really make that sort of part of it, because the dog is a part of the community.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's really important that the kids feel like that dog is part of their community.
Right. One of the things that I have a friend who needed a service dog, and she was renting a place, and she was told she couldn't have the service dog. And I told her, they cannot stop you from having a service dog. But it was an absentee landlord from another country, and they don't always understand our rules.
No, correct.
So
And things like getting taxis for me is virtually impossible. Nobody, they stop to pick me up and see a dog and drive off because they think dog hair, they think slobber, they think dirt. And then there's also some religions that, do find dogs dirty. Muslim, for example, is one of the religions where, dogs could be dirty and require them to clean their body more often. So, there are cultural differences as well when it comes to service dogs. And I, to try my best to be really respectful. So, getting in a taxi, maybe it's putting down a garbage bag, right? So that the hair doesn't get all over the car. There are ways that we can accommodate each other to make it work. But it takes commitment from both people to make that work.
For sure, yeah. You're also, are you still a speaker at the United Way?
Yes. Yes, I am. So I've been on the Speakers Bureau of United Way for almost 10 years now. And I do a lot of talking specifically about my experience with homelessness and my life story of how I ended up becoming homeless. And then what I'm doing now to sort of combat homelessness. So that's what my talks mostly go with. I talk a lot to large banks, hospitals, schools, and try to get the staff involved in the campaign for the United Way. So donating money to the United Way. And that's why I share my story with them during that season. So I've been doing that for almost 10 years, and I love getting to do it. And now there's more virtual options. So it's been really wonderful to open up and be able to do more speeches just because of our virtual capacities.
Yeah, right. And one of the things that you're talking about, and I'm more inclined to listen to somebody who has experienced homelessness than listen to maybe a politician who has rental properties. You know what I mean?
No, exactly. So I really try to put that personal spin on it and go through what I experienced. And something that I really like to point out, because I think we have this understanding that people experiencing homelessness come from poverty.
Yeah.
And that's a statistic that isn't actually accurate. So for me personally, I grew up in, a wealthy family, and I still ended up experiencing mental health, addiction, and ending up on the streets. And so, that it can happen to anyone at any time, and that there is no real immunity to homelessness is really what I try to get across in my story. And I think that the audiences really are able to understand that more when they start to think about, that not everybody who has experienced homelessness does come from a place of poverty.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that, again, that's happening out here, like when you mentioned at the very beginning is about food, there are a lot of groups now that I help out too, where then we have a free store, Chilliwack Free Store, where they support, or they give a box of food on a weekly basis. Like they have a rotating, I don't know if it's 400 or 500 people now. And then another organization called Streams Foundation Canada, also they just help the seniors who are low income, because the price of food is going up.
Oh, of course.
Right. So
yeah, and we have lots of food banks in Toronto as well, but we're at the point now where since COVID and the cost of living has increased so drastically that they can't serve all the people that need it. And, in Toronto now, you have to make an appointment to even go to the food bank. So you might not get in until, 2 weeks after that need, but what do you do in those 2 weeks as you wait? And then we also have to bring up the fact that most food banks aren't providing things like milk, right, fresh vegetables and fruit. And so then that goes back to, canned food can sustain you, but it's not the healthiest thing to be, eating and consuming. And so, what can we do to fix that in a large scale is something that I would love to look into more and have more knowledge on what we can do as a community to make sure that everybody is getting the nutrients that they need from their food.
Right, yeah. Well, one of the things about the Chilliwack Free Store, I know they do provide meat and vegetables and milk and bread, all of that.
That's wonderful, Nancy.
And a lot of those, I believe, are donated from businesses, or from
Right.
stores, like just as for instance, Cobb's. Do you have Cobb's in Ontario?
We have a bakery named Cobb's. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Okay, Cobb's, at the end of the day, they give away their leftover bread.
Which
And
is so important, because otherwise it's just going to go bad and be tossed out. Why not?
right, exactly, why not? And then a lot of the organization get that bread, right? Which is really, really great, So more businesses did things like that. Like I know there was a time where, I don't know if it's still true, that Walmart would throw away food that was like past the best before, not past the due date, but best before.
Right.
So it was still good food, but they would throw it in the garbage rather than giving it away to somebody,
Yeah, and I still see our grocery stores in Ontario are still doing that. And when I do ask them, why can't we donate it? They say it's about food safety and that we don't know if the food is safe, so we don't want to donate it. But, as we know, it's a best before date, not I'm expired on that date. And so, there is room there for them to donate those things. And it's unfortunate that most of it ends up in the garbage.
Yeah.
So that's something politicians really need to work on changing, I think.
Right, yeah. Now, you've been a speaker at the University of Toronto. What was your topic?
At University of Toronto, also, I do a lot of talking about my life story, but also how I ended up, because I did my master's of teaching at the University of Toronto. So I often talk about using education and using our life experiences as teachers and what we can do to bring social justice into the classrooms and things like that. So in that capacity, I'm often talking about my life story again and the importance of giving back. My research topic for my thesis paper when I was there was looking at children's picture books and looking at how we describe people experiencing homelessness in those books. So what I found was that it was predominantly people experiencing homelessness were predominantly described as, middle-aged or older white males, with not, clothing that didn't fit and shoes that had holes in it. And that's just not what everybody experiencing homelessness fits into that. And so really thinking outside of how we can create books and picture books for children that show different people experiencing homelessness. Children, for example, we don't see a lot of that in our picture books. And as educators, the books that we bring into our classroom are important. And so it's really to get teachers to start thinking about what are the books depicting and what biases are in those books that we bring in, and not to say we don't have to bring them into the classroom, you can still use them, but then having those discussions with kids specifically about, do you think everyone experiencing homelessness looks like this? And to really get them thinking outside of the box and in a social justice framework.
Very good, yeah. Now, what is Eva's initiatives?
Yeah, so I also, Eva's Initiatives is the shelter that I stayed at when I was experiencing homelessness.
Okay.
Eva's Phoenix is the location I stayed at, and it was a transitional youth shelter where there were 50 youth and there were 10 houses with 5 youth in them, and we shared tasks like cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the kitchens. We all had our own room with a lock and key. And so I was heavily involved in speaking to different people, funders, government officials about the importance that Eva's Phoenix has played in my life, how much it helped me to overcome homelessness. And unfortunately, the shelter I did live at, Eva's Phoenix, many years ago, land was rented from the government, and the government took the land back for condo development. And so that was something that I spoke as much as I could about, and went to, City Hall and to Queen's Park to tell politicians just how important the shelter was. Thankfully, because of my advocacy, Eva's Phoenix was given $5 million to rebuild, and we did get a new piece of land. So there was a really happy story there where the new space is even better and offers more opportunities for the youth. And so I've done a lot of work as far as advocating for this shelter and the help that they have provided for me, and trying to make sure that they are able to meet their funding requirements to continue the work that they do every year.
Right. One final subject I want to bring up is one thing that makes me crazy is when I hear politicians talk about affordable housing. So they're always building, but affordable for who?
Exactly.
Because they start off often, it's like, oh, I don't know who can afford that.
I mean, even as a teacher myself now, and I'm making what I would say is pretty good money. I mean, I can hardly make rent every year just on my own salary. So it's really, that what you said before about living paycheck to paycheck is the reality now for so many of us. And that means that we're just one step away from homelessness, one illness away, one, situation away from it. And so I think, it's really important that we figure out affordable housing instead of making more condos. How can we make those condos have affordable units in them that people can actually afford to live in?
Absolutely. Oh, I so agree with you 100%, like I often have our mayor on the show and we've talked about that, well, we're building this, we're building that, but it still, it makes no sense to me, like you're putting up these big places where, and as far as I know, where they're supposed to be good for seniors. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I lucked out because I own my apartment, but I bought at a good time. I had a house that I sold after my husband passed away. So I lucked out. But even here, condo fees go up and up and up and up. My income doesn't go up. I'm on my pension.
Right. Right.
I'm a senior, I'm on my pension. So it's like they don't, it's almost like they don't consider that factor for a lot of people.
100%. And it's making, like even as a supply teacher myself, because I'm a supply teacher and I don't have a contract saying that I have guaranteed work every year, I can't get a mortgage to buy my own house, for example. And so that puts me in that predicament of I'm always constantly renting when that rent money could be going to, say, a condo fee.
Yeah.
Right. But, unfortunately, that's something that almost seems impossible to actually achieve, is having my own housing.
Right.
And, if it's impossible for me on a teacher's salary, imagine how impossible it is for people on social assistance or, for those experiencing homelessness.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're going to end it there, but oh my goodness, it's so interesting. I think we're going to have you back on the show for sure.
I'd love to, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Just stay on camera for a second to the audience. Thank you so much for watching the show. You've been listening to Emily Wright, and I'm going to air this. Well, you'll find out when I'm airing it because you'll get to see it then. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care and peace out, everyone. Oh my goodness. I love the way you talk because you get so much in there and it's clear. I love it. I love that.
Thank you.
So when you have something else you think you'd like to share, whatever it is, just contact me and I'll set up a date and a time and I'll keep its time zone right in my head.
I'll know going forward, because I was like, I'm so confused. Is she coming? And then I realized there's got to be a time difference. So I'm glad we sorted it out. I could have done it later too. I was kind of sitting around like, I don't know what to do now. So I'm glad you responded.
Oh no, I'm glad you contacted me. Otherwise, so I would have been ready at my 12:30.
Yeah, and then I was Googling, I didn't even know, was that 3:30 my time? What time was that? And anyway, so I'm glad. Thank you so much for accommodating me, Nancy.
No problem. Thank you very much too. Have a good day.
All right, nice to meet you officially.
Same too, and see you again.
All right, bye.
Bye.